can stop Jon Moxley? No, not the title of last month's AEW pay-per-view review. It's a scrap title for this month's AEW pay-per-view review. Instead, of course, we've gone for Adam Copeland attacks Jon Moxley.
Yeah, he made his return on this show. We thought that this was going to happen on this Wednesday's Dynamite because that's what FTR said. We're not medically cleared to be at AEW shows until next year.
Yeah, but they got him right at the very end.
Excalibur even said, they're not medically cleared. Can't be here for the rest of the year. It's only 3 days.
Yep.
That's actually quite all right. I'm
joined by Luke Owen. I'm, of course, your reigning, defending Jam That Champion. If you haven't watched the Christmas special already, go over there after you've done this on the WrestleTalk channel, where I defeated Sat's Reign of Terror in a Christmas quiz.
You did. So if you have not seen the Christmas special yet, there's a brand new rule, which is that the Jam That Championship can be defended whenever, wherever, so long as there is someone to challenge for it and the challenger lays out something like, I will put the title on the line for X reason.
Want a challenge?
No, I kind of laid out a challenge for you on the 2025 predictions video, but that's not going to go out for a couple of days.
Yes. So because of the rule of tape delays, no one can challenge me for 2 more days.
That's correct.
Right, if you haven't already, please press the thumbs up button, give us a subscribe, leave a comment down below with what you thought of this episode of AEW Worlds End, and send in your...
I could call them OmegaChats.
What do you want to call them?
OmegaChats.
OmegaChats.
Came back.
Yes, of course. To WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out every single one at over $5 before the end of the show, but we will start with the end, which was after the main event, which I thought was the weakest match on the card.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
This is a show that should have ended a match previously, or just at least switched them around.
100%. I completely agree with you.
We didn't have the C2 final epic of Ospreay versus Okada as the closer. Instead, we had Jon Moxley defending his AEW World title against Orange Cassidy, Hangman Page, and Jay White in a fatal filler match.
I said this at the end of the
filler 4 match.
I said this at the end of the Full Gear review because that is when I'd heard, it's going to be a fatal 4-way for the title at World's End. And I didn't believe the person when they told me that was going to be the main event of World's End. And then I saw the closing angle of World's End and I was like, I think it might actually be that match. But even then I was like, I remember me and Tempest just remember like, it's not what I would do if I was given the book. But I think in sort of the months leading up to this, I've kind of been going with the line of, well, it's kind of like the Royal Rumble. You can put a Duff world title match on the Royal Rumble because the Royal Rumble's not selling the pay-per-view. The Royal Rumble is selling the pay-per-view. You can do Brock Lesnar versus Bob Harley for the title on a Royal Rumble because people are buying it for the Royal Rumble, not the world title match. And I guess the argument here is that you're selling this pay-per-view around the C2, not the world title match. So you can put a filler program in there. I also think that's a really bad way to look at it, which is what you could have done instead is to sell the pay-per-view on the Continental Classic finals and also sell the pay-per-view on a really good world title match to main event a pay-per-view.
It was... Actually, let's talk about the match first. So the story is there's Moxley in there and he's up against Cassidy, Page and White, who are all these sort of... Well, Page is a tweener, but they're against Moxley in this. So they all gang up and beat him up. But Moxley's got his Death Riders out there as well. They interfere a lot. I sort of thought a bit of this story was going to be, yeah, but Cassidy's got friends. White's got friends with the guns. Nobody came out to even the odds, as it were.
Not particularly, no.
No, there's no not particularly about it. They didn't.
Yeah, they absolutely did. Well, yeah, I mean...
Pac,
well, Juice is injured.
Claudio,
right?
Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir were all over this match to the match's detriment.
100%, I would very much agree with that.
Why don't the Guns come out, who aren't injured, and Cassidy's 100 friends?
Well, the friends group's very small now when you think about it, because
taken out.
Yeah, because Trent's obviously left the group. Chuck got injured by the Death Riders.
What about the conglomeration?
Oh yeah,
I didn't mean those friends.
It's part of that faction, isn't it?
What about Sue?
and Mark Briscoe. He was on the pre-show.
Yeah.
He was on the 0 Hour.
He was there. I saw him.
He was around.
Why wouldn't he hang around in kayfabe?
Is Kyle now out of that group?
I don't know.
Because Kyle joined another group today.
Yeah.
Or yesterday.
Maybe that was the worst thing on the show.
I got into the office today and Ollie was just checking his rushes that he recorded for the news. And he was just sort of doing a quick audio check. And the one bit of audio I heard you play was like, which I thought was the weakest match on the pay-per-view, on the main card. And I was like, which match do you think was the weakest? Expecting you to say MJF versus Adam Cole.
I love MJF too much.
And you said it was the 4-way. And I was like, huh. Yeah, I guess it was, because I kind of left on it on a bit of a high.
With Copeland's return.
Less so that, but like, because a Fatal 4-way match is just lads get in and lads hit big moves, I was sort of like, maybe I'm on a bit of a Christmas high at the moment. I've had a lot of booze and sugar and stodgy beige foods.
You told me you watched this match hungover.
No.
You can't take Luke's opinion as valid.
Incorrect. I was not hungover. My wife was hungover.
You're reviewing over the influence, under the influence. This is an OUI.
No, I watched this match completely fine, much to my wife's annoyance that I was not hungover this morning, because she got out of bed, I found out, at 2 p.m. today.
What? And you're a working man down here?
I'm at work. I was up at 7 a.m. to watch this pay-per-view.
How many Disaronnos did she have?
Quite a lot. And we were drinking them neat. And it wasn't Disaronno, it was Amaretto.
It's unbranded Disaronno, then. Your little Amaretto.
I think it was Disaronno, actually. We drank a lot of it and did drink it.
It's the same thing.
I know.
And it's almondy taste.
And we went to bed quite late. But I woke up completely fine, because I found that as I've gotten older, I'm getting hangovers less. Which is,
He's only growing stronger.
We
can't defeat him.
So maybe I was just on a Christmassy high of chocolate and stodgy food, and I was like, the lads hit all the moves. Jay White got in and hit a Blade Runner and Marina Shafir, and I'm there just sort of clapping away, being like, hey! And then as I sort of was on my way in, I took a step back. Well, okay, so when you played that clip when it was like, what was the worst match on the card? You said that, and I was like, oh yeah, that was the main event of this show.
Well, look, I had a similar thing because, and we always get it, it's a sort of behind-the-scenes effect we joke about. If anyone takes, like, even just a week off and you haven't watched wrestling for a week, you come back, because we all love wrestling.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, what a show, guys. What a show. Like when I started reviewing Raw again. Oh, it's the second coming of 2020 AEW. And you're like, give it a bit.
Give it a week.
Get used to it. And I think I was the same here. I was like, but when I start the first match on this card, just incredible.
Incredible.
Carl Fletcher, Will Ospreay, and I was woke up early. I hadn't done that for a whole week. Awesome. Drunk like someone else here. And I was like, I love my job. I love wrestling. Yes. And I kept saying that throughout the card until I got to this match. Because I was like, the show peaked for me, not just in the last match, but in the post-match angle when Kenny Omega comes out, stares down Okada with the all-in sign in the background. It was perfect. Like, that is the World's End.
I think it's a bigger return than Adam Copeland as well.
Hugely. But then there's this match. For a storyline I'm not into, for a stipulation I would rather not have, you'd rather want a singles or something than this bloated 4-way. With loads of interference. It's just Claudio, Pac, Yuta. Was Pac there?
I don't know.
I can't remember actually seeing Pac.
Claudio, I definitely remember being there, and Yuta because he gets in a lot.
Marina Shafir. And like Moxley gets taken out early by all three other guys. Powerbomb through the table.
Shield powerbomb.
Nice Shield reference. But then, this match goes 15, 16 minutes. It's like the fourth longest match on the card.
Is it really?
Yeah, the women's match went 25. Ospreay Okada went near 20.
Yeah.
I think there was something else. And then there was this. Or maybe this is tied with a few others as being that 16-minute range. And the finish is Moxley gets back in, everyone hits moves, a couple of buck shots, then Yuta gets in, and then Shafir gets in, and it's a running knee from Yuta onto White. Moxley, does he even... He hits a Death Rider, pins, and that's it. I was like, well, that felt like it just came out of nowhere. What a weak ending.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is that Moxley, I don't know if you saw him, when he got into the ring, had a gush of bleeding out the back of his head.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of looked rad because he just sort of like this, this unstoppable monster. I don't know if they cut the match short or anything like that.
But it's also, I'm not complaining. It was a 3-hour, 35-minute show. Still way too long for Ollie's bum. But much better than a 4-hour show.
And an 8-match card as well.
Yeah. So I don't know. And this match went 15 or 17, which feels short for this match.
Yeah, with this many guys in it as well.
I just look on paper how the finish felt rushed to me. Moxley coming back with blood pouring out the back of his head. I just thought, maybe this did go 5 minutes shorter because there was an injury.
I think I said this in the Dynamite review I did just before Christmas. I said this reminded me of, and I forget which show it is, but there is a show that The Rock has as champion in 2000 where, because The Rock wins the title in 2000 in sort of the second half of it, and is not the focus of the show. The focus of the show is Triple H and Kurt Angle,
main character.
Yeah, the main character, Triple H. And he had one of the pay-per-views he main events, and it's a fatal 4-way, and it's him, Taker, Kane, and Benoit, and it's just like, yeah, all right, I guess. And that is kind of what I had with this. It was like, yeah, all right, I guess. But what I find kind of baffling about it is this whole Death Rider story, this whole Moxley storyline is supposed to be like, this is the death of North American pro wrestling television. We're gonna shake up the system. We're gonna do something completely different. We're gonna end pay-per-views with actual murder and this, that, and the other. And this is now just any other wrestling angle. Like there's nothing really special about this Death Riders thing anymore. And it kind of feels like it's almost like the AEW women's division post All In. We're just sort of waiting to get to the next bit, but rather than do something while we're waiting, we're just going to wait.
So here's my pitch for something that would have made me interested. The match ends. I'm like, oh God, what a limp finish. But wow. It only says, I think even the fight feed has like this 3-hour 40 block, and I'm like, well, that's 20 minutes shorter than normal. And then this match ends still with like 10 minutes to go. I'm like, what's going on here? And then FTR come out first, and in a really neat reveal, I thought, their FTR logo turns to rated FTR.
Yeah.
Were they ever actually rated FTR? Or did he get injured?
Yeah, I was gonna say they haven't tagged in AEW.
Yeah, so this is wow. I just thought this was already a thing. So that's cool. And then Adam Copeland makes his return, and he looked great, I thought, the sort of anger, and they get in the ring and they take out the Death Riders, and Copeland spears Mox. Now, throughout this entire match, Christian is watching with his family of boys up in the rafters with that contract that he can cash in. And Hook's on the other side, also like, well, I might do something. Imagine if Copeland speared Moxley and then Christian cashed in and won the belt.
I think it's too soon to be taking the belt.
It is too soon, but it would have been something.
Well, it would have been something, and that would have been doing something for the sake of doing something, which,
But it makes sense, because then all of a sudden you've got Copeland, Christian, Moxley. That's a good 3-way.
I disagree, because I think that what makes most sense is that the person who dethrones Jon Moxley is the person who is saving AEW.
Oh, you are right there.
And
I take it back.
And I think one of the reasons why I'm kind of down on this Copeland, or not down on this Copeland return, I'm not enthused about this Copeland return, is because when I'm thinking of like, it's about saving AEW, and you're looking at guys like Orange Cassidy and Daniel Garcia and Darby Allin and all of these young guys. Now it's Adam Copeland who has been here for 5 minutes and has actually spent more time of it injured than he has been actually in AEW. He's got one rah-rah speech about how awesome AEW is. He's just not the guy I'm looking at. When I think of this story, he's just not the character I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of 6 other characters ahead of him.
And I suppose it's not that exciting because really, this was a go-home angle for the first episode of Dynamite on Max on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
And that's going to have a main event of Copeland and FTR, rated FTR, versus... I think is it Moxley, Claudio, and Pac?
And Yuta.
Moxley, Claudio, and Yuta. So not for a trios championship thing.
No, it is just
a straight up match.
It's just rated FTR versus the Death Enders.
So really, Copeland inserting himself at the end here isn't a world title feud.
No, I think it is going to be.
It's a trios title feud.
But in the post-show press conference, they did say, we're going to be going after the trios titles. We certainly want to get the tag titles as well. But we also, there's never been a match between Adam Copeland and Jon Moxley. That is a first-time ever match, and that is a match we want to do.
And everyone's calling for it.
So they will, Copeland is. So there will likely be, whether that's the Revolution main event, is Copeland versus Moxley for the AEW World title.
Yeah, it doesn't grab me by the...
lapels?
Balls. Doesn't grab me by the dick, you know? So there we are. It's great that Edge is back. I think this is a good place to enter 2025 for AEW. You got Kenny back and you got Copeland.
But I think I come out of that. I think I would have left the show on more of a high if you'd have ended on that awesome Ospreay Okada match and then the Kenny closing, because like Kenny coming back for me is again a guy I'm looking at being like, that's who I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of who is here to save AEW.
Yeah.
It's Kenny by God Omega, as one of the founders of this company.
Yeah. But he doesn't care because he came back in the other feud. It doesn't work, does it?
Much we talked about this on the TLC episode of the worst wrestling fails of 2024. But this whole evil group versus AEW has been tried twice in 2024, and it's not clicking with me on either one of them.
Let's see what you all think in the OmegaChats. Please do send in your thoughts to WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out every single one of them, over $5.
I also just want to add as well that I did like this show.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like if you're just tuning in and be like, oh, it's just these lads hating an AEW show again. Far from it. I thought this was an awesome pay-per-view that featured 3 stone cold classic matches.
Stone cold.
I thought this show was absolutely awesome, and I am also excited for, like, ever since they started doing all this FTR stuff on Collision, I'm like, great. Like, it's time we actually did something with FTR as opposed to them just dicking around with the Outrunners.
What a dud year it's been for them.
It has been a bad year for them, and I think this tag division, because all the stuff they did on the pre-show, needs some star power in that tag team division.
What a classic Luke moment there. Both burying and overly praising AEW, showing his bias both ways.
Look, I've got to try and get the thumbs up on this video somehow because we put up an AEW review. So as per the tradition of putting up an AEW review, a lot of people have just disliked it because we're talking about AEW.
Cameron P1 has a long message. Thank you very much for your donation. Cope! Really missed him and can't wait for his run to continue. Gonna wait and see how him being in the world title picture looks. But I think having it be a real story for both Mox and Cope could be a great start for AEW in 2025. Overall, I thought the show was really good. My love for Cole aside, I liked the match, but I'm excited for MJF and Cole to go their separate ways. Takeshita Hobbs killed with a great story. C2 over-delivered for me. Women's wrestling being my highlight of the night. Time to talk about the main event itself. Good match, but I think having it earlier in the night would have had a bigger impact. Either way, I'm happy. They're protecting the Blade Runner so much. More protected finishes is great. Tell that to Ospreay. Hidden Blade for you.
No, it's the Hidden Blade is a specific.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just a clothesline.
Down, elbow guard down to the back of their head.
It's the same with Adam Cole. If he just hits you with a sliding knee to the back of their head with his knee pad on, may as well brush him over with a feather duster. But once you take that knee pad down, boom.
Cameron P1 continues. Last thing I'll say is I think that the flat finishes are on purpose. Mox and the D-Riders are ruining the show because of their chaos. We won't get our catharsis until Mox loses. Could be grasping at straws, though. Love the work, WrestleTalk fellas. Keep it up. Thank you very much.
It almost feels a little bit like when Survivor Series was a bit mid, and the reports came out. I was like, yeah, it was mid on purpose, because they're just saving all of the stuff for when they get to Netflix.
Rafael Garcia says, I like Dadum Copeland, because it's like a dad pun there, and Father TR. But boy, did I miss Kenny and would have preferred him confronting Mox. I hope Rated FTR picks up the trios to allow Darby to get the AEW championship, but that won't happen. I thought it was said one of the question mark is injured. Is that one of the FTR is injured?
I don't know. I do think I 100% think that Rated FTR are going to get the trios titles, and I am very much nailed on. The Darby's winning the AEW title. He's going to be the guy that beats Mox. This started with Darby. It should end with Darby.
Sheldon Jackson says, the fact that the main event felt like a Roman Reigns bloodline match, that's a good comparison, actually.
Ebu of Wrestle Purists said that we started this year with a really bad Fatal 4-Way for a world title, and we've ended it with a really bad Fatal 4-Way for the world title.
Our new friend. Ebu of Wrestle Purists. Bloodline match with the amount of interference from the Death Riders. I mean, I see it more as a sort of House of Torture interference thing. Yeah. I feel like the Bloodline, classic Bloodline is, it's going to happen. One person interferes, usually with a hood up, and that's it. But House of Torture is just like non-stop. Yeah. This, multiple people, different angles. I don't like it, personally. Plus the fact that Jay White ate the pin for no reason when Orange Cassidy was right there. Jay needs to go back to Japan to get his aura back.
I mean, you just pinned Orange Cassidy, so maybe you don't want to pin him again. You've just pinned Hangman Page on 2 consecutive pay-per-views
by Jay White,
no less. So I get, like, Jay White, when I was looking at the 3, he was the one that made the most sense to me. The only reason I would say he didn't make sense to me is because I would imagine it's him versus Jay versus Moxley is going to main event at AEW Grand Slam. I guess that show is still happening. Like,
was this the Aussie show?
Yeah,
of course, yeah.
So that's I
think it's happening in a pub now.
In a different part of Australia. So I would have thought they wouldn't want to pin him if he is going to be going for another world title in Australia. But of the 3, he was the one that made the most sense to me.
Let's go through the entire show. Please do keep getting in your Omega chats to WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read every single one of them, over $5 before the end of the show. The 0 hour was a whole load of nothing, really. We had Toni Storm.
You take that back right now.
You're going to say Jeff Jarrett?
Was the best match on the show, yeah.
Okay, well, what, the 0 hour show or the whole show?
Just the Jeff Jarrett QT Marshall match was the best match of the night.
It was 2 guys who know how to carny. You want a house show performance? I'm your guy. Brilliant.
It was the most awesome. It was like, you know when we went to Riot Cabaret and they had Shah Samuels versus Grado? And
it's my favourite match of the weekend. That's better than Danielson Swerve.
And we said, at the end they were like, that was great.
Yeah.
That was so much fun. And I've seen them have that match 20 times. And it's great every time they do it. I was watching Jeff Jarrett and QT Marshall. Rest holds, some sleepers.
There's
a crowd hyping them up, doing poses. I was like, this is the most incredible. Why isn't more wrestling like this?
It doesn't draw. But I totally agree with you. Enormous respect for this style of just classic crowd entertaining wrestling.
It was so entertaining.
It didn't have all your flippy moves and blade jobs. Had something purer than that. House showness.
It did not need all the bells and whistles. Because it was bells and whistles.
Couple of bells, couple of whistles. It was, I mean, I've written here it was 98% taunting.
Should have been 99.
Is that the one bit of feedback, guys? Couple more taunts in the middle there. But I really, please don't think we're crapping on this.
It was awesome.
Really like this style of match.
It was awesome.
Jeff Jarrett won that. despite some interference by Aaron Solo. Aaron Solo.
Yeah, it's taken out by Black Machismo.
Yeah, Jay Lethal stopped him. But then, we'll talk about this now then. Later on in the 0 hour, Jeff Jarrett, he's with Team TNA backstage, and he says he's got an announcement to make on Wednesday's Dynamite about his career.
Yeah, you made this prediction in the 3 counts of Jarrett going on a retirement run. I think this is going to be him teasing the retirement.
Yeah.
Or announcing his retirement.
And at that point in my notes, I wrote, yeah, of course, because All In, he can retire there in his home state of Texas, blah, 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 blah. And then it was only on the way, and I was like, he's from Tennessee.
He's from Tennessee.
But he feels Texan sometimes. It's the cowboy hat.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think he feels very Nashville.
I don't know what America is sometimes. Just merge those few bits together.
If you would say, like, what is Nashville? I would say, there's the fairgrounds and TNA. That is what Nashville is.
Nashville, Texas. We also had Toni Storm versus Leila Grey. I love the Toni. I don't get to review Dynamite on the podcast, but I was behind her coming back as non-timeless Toni Storm from the moment I saw it. I think it's a really fun thing.
I'm really enjoying it.
The bit I would change is, if that's what you're going to do, have her come back in September.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Because then she has a reason to stay away from Mariah May because she doesn't remember any of that happening, without just having everyone go, well, when's Toni Storm going to come back?
I completely agree with you. Because, again, speaking of that Grand Slam Australia show, I'd imagine that's when they're going to do the rematch of Toni Storm versus Mariah May, which is what we basically, I say, been building to, waiting for, since Mariah May won the title. So I would agree with you on that. But I am really enjoying this run. And I imagine the people like, why is she on the pre-show? It's like, well, that's the character. She's a rookie. She's getting a pay-per-view debut, so you start on the pre-show.
I like it a lot. She beat Leila Grey. Not with a finish or anything, but with a surprise roll-up. Yeah. Again, that story of her trying to learn the craft. Top Flight and the Outrunners were the babyface 4-man team who took on Action Andretti, Lio Rush, and the Murder Machines of Brian Cage and Lance Archer. Yeah, fun stuff. Don Callis punched an Outrunner behind the referee's back. Leo tagged himself in on Lance to steal Lance Archer's win. And then there was a private party stare down between them and Action and Rush afterwards.
That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. This idea of this tag team division does not feel very stacked at the moment, because they were kind of positioning these 4 teams as like, well, these are the top contenders for the tag title. I'm like, wow, one of these teams is over in the Outrunners. And even then, I feel like that's...
Murder Machines are pretty sick.
Well, they are awesome, but I wouldn't say that they are an over act. And even then, with the Outrunners, I think that has slightly waned. I think we're sort of past that peak.
Yeah. I was quite shocked at the dearth of the tag division here. I look back on all the pay-per-views of the year, and I was like, has there ever been an AEW pay-per-view that didn't have a tag title match on? I was like, Forbidden Door, right there. It was 6 months ago. But, that's a different kind of show.
Yeah.
But Revolution, this year's Revolution, was main evented by the tag title match. Granted, that's also Sting's retirement. But that's a way to elevate the titles, not just the Young Bucks. And here we are at the end of the year. And it's like AEW don't care about the tag titles unless it's on FTR or the Bucks. I think this is a really poor treatment of a division that the company launched itself on priding.
I would even disagree that unless it's on FTR and the Bucks, because the FTR's last run wasn't exactly like, anything to write home about. And the Bucks had it for like half a year and did very little with it. I think it is the treatment of tag team wrestling across both major companies this year has been quite poor. But AEW's at the moment is an astounding lack of effort.
And then, looking at the rest of this card, I think Tony Khan's getting an email from Triple H tomorrow. Look at all those singles matches. It's singles match-a-mania.
What are you talking about? The main event?
Apart from the main event. when we got to Takeshita Hobbs, a match I actually really enjoyed, I was like, where's the tag matches?
on the pre-show.
Yeah, exactly. Then we got the awesome Welcome to the Jungle video package. That's so good.
Yeah.
But the main card opened in the biggest, best way possible. It's probably my match of the night, but I would give my favourite bit of the night to the last 5 minutes of Okada Ospreay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say. Women did good wrestling too.
I was going to say Jeff Jarrett, but I think this is, with a couple more taunts in there and a few more rest holds, this could have been a 5-star classic.
What could have been?
What could have been? If only that Will would learn a little bit of psychology, you know? This was my match tonight.
Yeah.
This was... And it's incredible how great this match was. Because I don't even think this was as good as their Full Gear match. But it was still like a match of the night.
They entered the match like this. This was a 15-minute match, but I keep getting this happened to me earlier. I stupidly contacted a gardening company, and they now ring me 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was trying to get ahead on New Year's stuff. I thought,
I'll call the gardening company.
They'll reach out to me next week like normal people. No, 3 times a day on a Sunday. Anyway. But the Will Ospreay and Carl Fletcher just sort of went right at each other. Loads of crazy fast reversal bits. They spill outside, and Fletcher, I think he lawn darted him into the barricade or maybe the ring post, and Ospreay just emerges. Oof. That's a hell of a blade job.
It was a gusher is what it was. Like, this was legit pissing blood out of his forehead.
It looked like he had put face paint on.
Yeah. It was
or like he'd been misted rather than it was actual blood.
And his selling of it, dude, is like so great. And like he then just like had his eyes closed because like the blood just poured over his left eye. It was so great.
It let the match. So it was a 15-minute match, I think. Like quite short by these standards. But it's like they got into the final third of the match 3 minutes in because of this blood.
Yeah.
And it's not like Fletcher worked him over like Okada did in the final. They just kept on going at each other, back and forth. There's a great moment early on to cover Ospreay's blading, I believe, where Fletcher, who's really got star presence about him, got on the barricade. He's taunting the crowd, and this guy's got a sign. You see it?
Yeah,
Ospreay's better. And he takes the sign. He rips it in two. Boo! The same fan then pulls out another sign. Ospreay's still better.
Even if that is a plant, which, you know, could be. Like, they gave him that sign and said, they're going to do this spot, and then hold up this one, right? Love it. Do that more. Because it was really... And the crowd popped huge for it as well.
So funny. But that feels like an intimate wrestling crowd who know the performers and what gets under their character's skin. Like you'd see in an indie show. I thought in that moment, and this whole match, I thought this is AEW at its best.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately they go back and forth. They're trading headbutts in a quite sick spot at the end. And Fletcher tries to use the ropes for the pin. And while that didn't lead directly to the finish, the referee pulled him off. And I think that, that there's this argument that the cheating is backfiring on Fletcher.
Yes, which has always been the Callis thing of like it's Callis giving bad advice.
The ultimate finish though was Kyle takes Will up for a brainbuster, and I've watched this back. It's like those 2K move animations where you can't quite see the joins. He goes from a brainbuster into a Hurricane Rana.
Yeah,
I don't know how his legs are up in there.
I don't know how he does it. Yeah,
and then he hits Styles Clash to win.
Loved it. A phenomenal opening match for a pay-per-view.
Great opening match that creates such a great narrative to pay off in what should have been the final match of the night.
Oh, I agree.
The C2 final.
I also think as well that I've loved this year's C2.
Yeah, it's been good.
Really enjoyed this year's C2. I think the quality of wrestling has been great. But what I've loved about it in particular is looking at this show in a microcosm is that the C2 actually benefited multiple people. Like last year, you could say like, oh, Garcia got some character stuff out of it. It was nice to see Danielson in the tournament. Eddie got his moments, and Moxley got this and the other. But this, I'm like, no, Will got a great story out of it. Kyle Fletcher got so much from this year's Continental Classic. Ricochet has now got something about him because of being in the Continental Classic. I think Shelton Benjamin came out better from the Continental Classic. And it allowed Okada to be Okada, which is kind of what we've been missing since he's come into AEW, because he's been going into some like comedy heel shtick and kind of carrying on from 3-star Okada towards the end of his New Japan run. So I just think this has been an incredibly successful tournament.
Yeah, really agree. Particularly on Ricochet, which was the next match. He takes on Okada, and I was like, I could see either of these guys winning. You know, but definite favourite is Okada.
Yeah.
But Ricochet with the heel work could go into. He's got the history with Ospreay. Looking back now, I'm like, of course it was Okada. But
yeah, I think that's what it kind of hit me as he was coming out, and I'm like, oh yeah, they have been pushing this idea that he's going to be, if he wins this, he will be the greatest tournament wrestler of all time. And I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have seen from the outset that he was going to win. Outside of the fact that I still think the direction is Okada Takeshita, which they teased ages ago.
But this was. Brian Alvarez described this as Okada went to third gear, which is the most he's done actually in AEW so far.
My note as well. That felt like motivated 3-star Okada.
But I mean, third gear, 3-star, he's still pretty damn
it's
good.
Pretty damn good, isn't
and
he?
it's the total opposite of what we saw in the opener,
Yeah.
which is it's mostly slow stuff. They go this just only slightly longer, but must have done a third of the moves.
Yeah.
And it's, Okada just hits one Rainmaker to win in the end.
He had an incredible comedy spot, which is where he sat up Rick. So Rick, like, since the Hammerstein shows, man, like, Ricochet is just, like, leaning into it. Also, because the crowd have watched the Hammerstein shows, they're now, like, joining in with it. It's like, oh, we now know what to chant at Trevor and all of this sort of stuff. So it's all the bald stuff. So, like, Okada sits him up in the middle of the ring, and he goes to run the ropes to do the head slap spots. But at one point, like, switches direction to do it, and he does it, and the guy go, oh, hey! But hilariously, just before they were setting all of this up, they were talking about how Okada studied from Ultimo Dragon, and Ricochet learned a lot of his craft from watching people like Ultimo Dragon. And then they did that spot, which leads to Nigel McGuinness going, well, he didn't learn that from Ultimo Dragon.
It was great stuff, but yeah, it's the big thing for Ricochet was in the post-match, because Okada wins, he leaves, Ricochet's left in the ring, and that's when Swerve Strickland comes out and says, look, if you blew winning the C2, I'd come out to embarrass you. And Prince Nana comes out with a wheelbarrow full of toilet rolls.
Yeah.
They distribute them to the fans around the ring, and they all chuck the toilet rolls at Ricochet to wish him a happy new year.
If I may just fold my arms for just a second, and maybe this will, maybe I might be in the minority here. I didn't like this.
I'm just folding my arms as well.
Yeah,
I thought it was a bit kiddie.
I've written here, well, that was a bit John Cena.
Yeah,
and it's not what I would. It's not what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of Swerve Strickland cutting promos on babies.
Yeah.
It's just,
he got his house burnt down in August and a syringe jammed into his mouth.
Yeah. And now here he is doing toilet paper jokes.
It could have been a gunge thing.
Yeah.
That you
He may as well have written JBL is poopy on a car.
I like the visual, and a fan threw a toilet roll in before. Yeah, because it's a joke on the stream of things. I think it's a great thing. But it's when it's given to someone as cool as Swerve.
Yeah.
It just, and it was good. It was a good visual, but it didn't totally resonate with me.
It didn't tonally resonate with me. So yeah, I Swerve is too cool to be doing this sort of lame comedy.
To go out and buy that many toilet rolls.
Yeah. And then him and Nana backstage being like, okay, what we'll do, we'll go out there and I'll say that he's made such a mess with his mouth that we're going to have to clean it up. And then what we'll do is if you hand it out to everyone, we'll throw it all in. And then it'll get covered in toilet paper.
What would he do if he won? Just sat there backstage with a loaded toilet roll. Oh, crap.
Well, if he does,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
he's prepared.
Sorted for the next pandemic. After that, we got Renee talking to Will Ospreay backstage. He is covered in blood, and he cut such a good promo, which ended with, "Let's effing go, lads."
So
Yes!
Will sold this, like, because he is, the doctors are looking at him, trying to cover up his gashes and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, I've lost to Okada I don't know what it is, 8 times out of the last 10 that I've faced him, but you know what? I'll live for this, S." Oh, actually, I got a bit lightheaded, so saying all that. And he was selling it so great. And it was like, do you know what? I'm lightheaded. I'm going to win this. I'm going to go to Disney World. In the words of Tony Khan, let's effing go, lads. Genuinely, bearing in mind, I think it is incredible that Okada Ospreay match from the start of this year was as highly regarded as it was when I thought it was a broadly fine match. I was not actually that excited for an Ospreay Okada final because I was like, "Oh, I saw them wrestle at the start of this year and it was fine." This made me really excited to see Will Ospreay wrestle again.
Your Will Ospreay impression is quite similar to the Swerve and Nana planning to buy toilet roll impression.
I would say that my other person, the other one I would do, which is I would say a reformed dad.
Yeah. We both know who you're at. Can't say that anymore. Can't say Greg Wallace.
It's not even my Greg Wallace.
Are you telling me?
That's Greg.
That's more Greg.
Can't do that anymore. No, it's more. I wouldn't say so. I think my other voice is more of a dad joke.
Yes. Yeah.
My Will Ospreay was me attempting to do Essex. I would also say that my dad voice is from the southeast. Yeah. As opposed to from Essex.
So you're making fun of my people. That's fine. That's fine. I'm Luke. I'm from Liverpool. I've got such a heritage.
I was born in the southwest. I'm just from Liverpool heritage.
R Pete and R this. Right, then we had Thunder Rosa and Mariah May. They're a bit of a tough spot following those 2 great opening C2 matches. They had a Tijuana street fight, bit of plunder and weapons and stuff to be a bit of a palate cleanser, really.
Variety.
Yeah, they had trash cans. They brought up the ramp. They went through a sort of wooden board on the top of the ramp. They come down. There's a piñata which gets opened up, which is full of thumbtacks, which was fun. Mariah May stole Thunder Rosa's dad's walking stick at ringside. And the finish was May got some of the graveyard dirt.
Yes, from the graveyards of Tijuana, of Mexico, right?
Which Mr. Rosa was kind enough to bring.
Mm-hmm.
This reminded me of that Undertaker. Who was it against? The only way you could defeat the Undertaker was with...
it was with Booker T, where he went to a voodoo doctor to find out what's the best way for me to beat the Undertaker.
And he does it, and it's just like non-effective. Yeah. But in this way, May gets it. She chucks the dirt into Rosa's face and then hits a pile driver off the apron through a table to pin outside, so it was a fool's count anywhere.
Yeah, there's like, wow, that's 7 defenses of the AEW Women's World Championship from Mariah May, and I've been written here, and little of them have mattered.
Who were the other 6?
I'm pretty sure she defended in a 4-way with like.
Does that count as 3?
with Queen Armanada. Yeah. It's just been like I'm a broken record at this point, but I'm kind of ready for us to just get to the next chapter of this story. And by the next chapter, I mean the first chapter.
My biggest issue with this, there were 2 tricycles on the stage.
That didn't get used?
Well, as soon as I saw them, I was like, that's gonna... Whatever they've got planned, I'm going to look forward to.
This is not for me.
Didn't come into play.
No, this was not for me. I like both women... but it's more for the feud for Mariah May.
MJF then took on Adam Cole. This was for the Diamond Ring, and we had Matt Taven and Mike Bennett at ringside to guard the Diamond Ring to stop MJF from using it. And it was like, I love both guys, and I love a lot of what they did last year. Mm-hmm. This is so far away from the highs of what they accomplished in 2023.
Yeah,
and the story building up to it's like, why, if this is what you had planned, this whole story, why bother coming back to it?
Yeah, it's the fact that Adam Cole gets booed at the end of this because they beat up MJF 5-on-1 it says a lot. Like, people just are not into this. They've been booing Adam Cole a lot, like in the build up to this. A lot to stretch, but he has been more noticeably booed than MJF is. Like, MJF came out, hero's return for Maxwell, because we've missed him because he went away for a while. This storyline's not clicked with me, and this crowd booing the Undisputed Kingdom at the end of it. Yeah. And I've been sitting there. I was waiting for the Kingdom to turn on Adam Cole. I was like, the second Adam Cole said the Kingdom are going to be at ringside, I was like, oh right, so they can turn on you. And I was like, no, it's just MJF was always at the disadvantage in this match, and he was a 3-on-1 throughout this because they were protecting the Dynamite ring. He had to find a way to get them ejected from ringside, and then they beat him up 5-on-1 afterwards. I felt sorry for the poor guy.
You felt sorry for MJF because he couldn't get to his weapon to cheat.
Yeah.
Taven and Bennett didn't interfere into the match.
No, but they were certainly cheering.
So Cole and MJF go back and forth. I mean, MJF, it's like he is such a force of will. He was trying to get everyone involved into the match crowd-wise. But it was an uphill struggle. People just aren't into the story, although everyone is there for both guys, definitely. And MJF goes outside. He pretends to hit his own head on the steel steps. The referee looks round, sees Taven and Bennett, and gets them ejected. Yeah. Like sort of Eddie Guerrero framing spot. MJF then sneakily gets the ring, gets into the the wrestling ring with the diamond ring, and Adam Cole stops him from using it and is like, haha, now I've got the ring. And nobody popped. No. And then MJF just kicked him in the dick.
Yep. And then hit the Heat Seeker, and he won.
Has he been winning with the Heat Seeker recently?
No. You say recently, he hasn't really wrestled many matches because he's been off filming Happy Gilmore.
But it felt like, a bit of a dud finish. Because of at least, what's a bigger finisher for Max that's not the Salt of the Earth armbar?
But I think that's it, isn't it? It's like do you hit the Heat Seeker to pin someone, or you hit the other one to tap him out? Like, it made sense as a finish because really the finish was the low blow.
The balls.
Like, I actually thought the match itself was good.
Yes, and they're good wrestlers.
They are really good wrestlers. It's just that the story has not helped them at all, and then afterwards, it's just psychologically backwards, and it just didn't feel like it worked.
So Max goes to put Cole's leg in a chair afterwards. He's going to Pillmanize the ankle that took Cole out for so long. And Roddy runs down to make the save. And immediately, this shows how uninvested I am in this story. Immediately I go, but Taven and Bennett surely they weren't that far away.
Probably barely got up the ramp by the time the low blow and finish had happened.
So why didn't they help? And then MJF runs away from Roddy, goes up the ring, and Kyle O'Reilly's there. And again, I'm like, but what about Taven and Bennett? They definitely would have made it out by now.
Yeah.
And then Carl, he takes Max down to the ring, and it just all feels like someone's gonna turn on someone. Roddy and Carl are gonna turn to look at Cole, and that wouldn't have been good either. But they didn't. They both did the high-low on MJF. And Adam Cole then... What did he do? He punched him with the diamond ring.
So he got the diamond ring on, and Roddy and Kyle held MJF up, and he hit the diamond ring, and the crowd booed.
Yeah. And then Taven and Bennett come in, and all these 5 guys, which is Undisputed Era... It's the Undisputed Era with Taven and Bennett rather than the best member, Bobby Fish. Where's the lie? I just thought... we all loved Undisputed Era. Mm-hmm. It was 5 years ago, their peak.
Yeah.
I felt like this was a bit of nostalgia that no one's asking for.
Yeah, you're sort of looking at it as like, oh, it's Ring of Honor from 10 years ago.
It's NXT from 5 years ago.
But with Taven and Bennett now.
With Taven and Bennett, yeah.
It's like, oh, man. I feel bad, and I always have felt bad, because the injuries have clearly stopped this story from being the story that they wanted this story to be last year. Not also helped by the fact that they sold a lot of t-shirts, which meant they had to stay together for longer, and they kind of had to change up the story. And then the injuries ruined everything. But man, I was so ready to move on from it. And I'm now really ready to move on from it.
That's the one silver lining, I hope. That this feels like the end, Adam Cole's got a faction. He can go off and do his own thing. Hopefully they can turn heel because they don't have to be heel against MJF. MJF can go off and do his thing, and he can be heel too.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well. It's like, because so it's been hampered by injuries, which can't be helped. It got hampered by t-shirt sales, which really they didn't anticipate that they had to sort of adapt to. Then it got hampered by multiple injuries. I don't even know where Wardlow is at this point. I guess is he still in? Is he injured? I guess still. But then it also got hampered by MJF going off to film a movie in Happy Gilmore 2. So really, Adam Cole has been carrying the storyline on TV on his own, and it's just not been very good. It's just a story that people aren't into. And now the 5 of them together has been like, I don't know what you're going to do now, but I do hope that they're going off in their separate directions. But I agree with you that I do think that the Undisputed Kingdom should be heels, because I think they'll be better as heels, and B, you might just want, kind of like with Ricochet, just lean into crowd reactions. Just want to say as well, for our live chat, I have put a poll up because I was curious, because you and I, arms folded.
Oh, with the toilet.
Yeah. Just to ask, what did people think? So I've asked for a thumbs up, thumbs down opinion. We'll find out if we are in the minority of thinking it was a bit lame.
It's not. I wasn't even going to mention it. That's how sort of unoffended I am by it. But I did have a bit in me that just went. Takeshita versus Hobbs, though, prompted a different kind of reaction inside me. Meat chants early on and continued throughout the match. This was a bit of a sleeper hit, I'd say.
I agree.
Sort of in the middle of the card for the International Championship. And yeah, after all of those singles matches that we've had, and they come in and they just have... Hobbs is selling the knee because that's what took him out injured. And I thought he was really good. He was great at selling the knee.
So great. I thought when he reversed the running knee strike into the spine buster for a great near fall that this crowd really bought into. Like I would say, this was a crowd that was, particularly in like the women's match, the Tijuana Street Fight. I wrote that they were the crowd were both hot and cold because they weren't really reacting to the match. But then when they would do a spot, people would go, "Oh!" Yeah. And I felt like some matches took a little while for the crowd to get invested into, this being one of them. The Monet Statlander match is another one, but by the end of it, like, this crowd was so into this match, and that's the same with the Monet Statlander match too.
They both go up for a I don't know what Hobbs was going to go for, but it was on the top rope, and he did this fall off of it, which made me think, was that legit?
I think that was a botch, but
do you think it was a botch?
Yeah, I think he just lost his footing and he slipped. The only reason I think that is because they then just got up and repeated the spots, which was a superplex.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, in my head it was like, it was really good selling.
Yeah,
and that made the superplex spot mean more. But Takeshita hit a superplex, which was very high, and then a senton, and that's when he runs into the spine buster. But great. Hobbs has the sort of leg brace on, and Aubrey helps him take it off. I guess it was restricting his injured knee.
Well, he said that because he hits the avalanche power slam, which was a great spot, but he just could not capitalize on it because his knee was giving him so much bother. And they were saying, like, on commentary, I think they did this really well. It's like, it's probably swelling because of the injuries. Right. So it's like he needs to get the knee brace off because he's needed, like, to be able to move his knee a little bit more. But that just gave Takeshita enough time to recover and hit the Raging Fire for the win. I thought it turned into a hell of a match. I thought this was great.
Yeah, really good stuff. Then you get a Renee interview with Okada backstage. He talks about Will being his younger brother, and he's beaten him more often than not, and he's not on his level. Bitch. Mercedes Moné then took on Chris Statlander.
Awesome match.
So a rematch from the Full Gear one for the TBS title, which was also really good.
Awesome match.
And like you said, the crowd were here for it, but this was a long match. This was the longest women's pay-per-view match in company history.
Yeah.
And it was the longest match on this card by a good 5 minutes. So 20%, maths fans. And I thought it really, it just built really classically. This was a very classic, simple psychology, but really innovative spots to tell that story psychologically.
Yeah.
There was only one. I'll just get this out of the way now so we can talk about how great it is. There's just this spot near the end where they're teasing the count out. Chris Statlander's outside, and Monet's going to go for the count out victory. And then she goes, no, wait a second. And she goes outside to beat up Statlander a bit more on like the 9 count, and then puts her foot in the rigging underneath the ring to stop her getting back in. But if she was just about to win by count out anyway.
Yeah.
So that was just a tiny, tiny blemish.
I agree. I completely agree with you because I don't think they did enough to kind of cover for that. It almost felt like the boot spot was supposed to be when they were originally outside. And then Monet was like, uh-oh, I forgot to do the boot. I'd better go out there and do the boot bits. But yeah, it was really weird. Like they got to literally 9 count. There was no way Stat was like moving. And Monet broke the count up. And I was like, oh, because she wants to like win honorably. And then she just got back in the ring and was like, can her out, referee. I was like, mate, you already done this.
But that aside, fantastic match. And it's a story of, I mean, I took it as a story of strength versus smarts.
Yeah.
So early on, Chris establishes that by just walking Monet up the steps on her shoulder, body slam onto the apron.
Yeah.
But then as a mirror to that, shortly after, they're both on the top rope. Monet slinks out of it and uses her new position to powerbomb Chris off the top rope onto the apron.
Really innovative as well, because they were kind of like battling, like, you know, over the turnbuckle on either side of the corner. And Monet, like, slinks out of it, but then she crawls through the middle ropes to get to the other side into a powerbomb position. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, she's really, like... I love Mercedes Sasha as a wrestler, as a heel wrestler. But I feel like... I don't know if this is... God, I feel like people criticize her in-ring wrestling ability.
Do they?
Maybe I'm just interpreting the internet wrong.
I would say that the general consensus is she's probably one of like the greatest to ever do it.
Good.
Yeah.
I believe that's true.
Because I think she is... She's not had the most stellar 2024. I think that the Stephanie Vaquer match at Forbidden Door, it was so good it got Stephanie Vaquer signed to WWE, was a great match. But it really feels like she's waited until the end of the year to have like a really great run with this TBS title. Like the 2 Statlander matches, the match she had in New Japan, it's been a really great end of year for Mercedes Moné, and actually a good reminder that not everything is the all-in match with Britt Baker. Like it's or like all of the kind of the naff stuff she's doing with Camille and the backstage party and things like that. Like actually, she is fundamentally one of the best to ever do this.
I forgot about the backstage party. I take it back. She's rubbish. She hits the 7 amigos.
Oh, this was so great.
It was so good. We've seen the 3 amigos so many times. Yeah, I get it. Sasha Banks likes Eddie Guerrero. But then she hit another one.
Yeah.
And another one and another one and another one. And hits 7 amigos in sequence and then goes up for the frog splash. It was a weirdly babyface spot to do for the heel character she was doing. But everyone was into the match so much it didn't harm the dynamic.
I also felt like she had like 3 is not enough because it's the speed versus smarts thing. You can't just do 3 to kind of keep Statlander down. You need to do more of these to make sure you stay down so I can then hit the frog splash. Which, if I can give it one of the worst frog splashes in professional wrestling. But I thought this was tremendous. But for me, the spot of the match was the count out spot that they did do. But they framed this so great. So like Stats on the outside, her boot's been all caught up, this, that, and the other. Monet is in there, and the referee is counting. The referee gets to 8, and then the camera just cuts to Mercedes Moné against the ropes, being like, ha, I have won. And the referee counts 9. And then from out of nowhere, you don't see, like usually you'd film the babyface jumping into the ring. You don't see the jump. You just see Statlander get into the ring. It was like a jump scare.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah, it's very memeable. Very, and that sort of set up the final part of the match, which was a quick exchange of technical pins. And Monet just got a crucifix one with a smart, like, I think her heel was hooking the ankle of Chris as well. Like, it was more of a... Yeah, there was more going on there than just a simple crucifix pin. And it was like, that isn't conclusive.
Yeah.
And despite Monet beating her clean twice on pay-per-view, I want a 3rd match. That's a really big accomplishment as 2 wrestlers.
Yeah, I thought this match was sensational. And also I thought Monet she really got over Stat as this threat. Like there's that point when she does the 9 count spot, she gets back in the ring, she literally said, why won't you die? Yeah. And I thought Monet sold all of this so great. I thought Statlander was awesome in this match. Then the crowd actually chanting CE no was a nice little touch. There was a bit of confusion on commentary because Tony was like chanting CEO, and Xavier was like, no, I think they're chanting CE no. It's like a bit The Simpsons. Were you saying Boo Earns? But I thought this was just a superb match.
I think on another pay-per-view it could be match of the night.
Yeah.
But we had Ospreay.
Will was here. So yeah.
Will was here twice.
It is hard to have the best match of the night when Will is on the show, A, but Will wrestling twice, B.
Which brings us to the Continental Classic final. It was Okada versus Ospreay. They went 18 minutes, and for 15 of those minutes, it was just Okada working pretty slow. Mm-hmm. It was like, Ospreay, whoa, buddy, whoa. Yeah. Don't do some stuff. Let me work you over. You've got a blooded head.
Yeah.
And then, I don't have to do much either.
Yeah.
But it was brilliant.
It was so great. And this crowd gave this the reaction that, seeing Okada and Ospreay on pay-per-view in AEW in North America, because this crowd were they just erupted into applause as soon as these two guys were just standing there. And again, I think that's a testament to A, their star power, but B, how good of a tournament that this has been, that this is the final we wanted to see.
I love it's how Okada and Ospreay have come together as well.
Yeah.
That it's in this battle of who is the best wrestler in AEW in a tournament, as opposed to a storyline thing a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So Okada's got the huge advantage because he's barely broken a sweat against Ricochet somehow. I mean, he is the most decorated tournament wrestler of all time. Whereas Ospreay, he put everything out there, half of his blood, in the Fletcher match just a couple of hours previously. Ospreay looks like he's been in a zombie movie, but then he hits the Styles Clash. That's the shot he beat Fletcher with. This is about 15th minute now. And Okada kicks out. And then Okada hits the Rainmaker, which is the move he beat Ricochet with. Yep. But Ospreay kicks out. And from that point onwards, it is just 4 minutes of excellence.
And it was also at that point as well that the blood started to pour from Will again. From, the sort of small head bandage they put around him. So now Will is just the blood starts pouring down his face again as they go into this, you're right, this incredible ending 4 minute sequence.
And what people often say about Okada matches is, I'll skip the first 25 minutes then, because all the good stuff is in the last 5 to 10 minutes. That really misses the point of how he builds a match. Those 15 minutes of him seeming like he's doing nothing, it's actually the magic of it all.
Yeah.
He's doing so much. He's setting up the bits that are going to pay off in those last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like people who say Back to the Future Part 2 is better. No, because you need Back to the Future Part 1 to play off of.
Yeah. You need that background and context. Yeah.
And I can't... Please go and watch the last 5 minutes of this match, because they went too fast for me to make notes on.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Because when Okada hit his drop kick from Will doing the Oscar was absolutely awesome. But then he hits the Rainmaker, maintains wrist control, and Will somehow reversed the Rainmaker again. Got him up for Stormbreaker, but Okada reversed that into an arm drag and then hit the Rainmaker for the win. It was this whole thing. And even then, I think I've missed about 6 spots within that. But it was just great. And then you put him over. He's now won 5 tournaments, 4 G1s, 1 C2. The greatest tournament wrestler of all time.
Who could possibly stand up to him? Christopher Daniels. So Christopher Daniels comes out and he says, normally I would present the Continental title to you, Okada. And everyone in the building is like, what? Not normally?
Not normally. A, this is only the second time, and B, did an EVP present the belt last year?
I don't care.
Normally.
What is your jurisdiction here as well, Daniels?
Well, if anything, he's now got even less jurisdiction because he's now stepped down as an EVP. I will be honest, I do not remember him being an EVP.
He was an interim EVP.
Was he an interim EVP? I thought he was just the voice of Tony Khan.
Was he also... Did he come back as a wrestler?
Yes, he did wrestle a match.
Okay, so he's not just actually lost his job in all of this.
Which I think is the bit that people keep missing out on this, is that the whole reason that Christopher Daniels was the interim assistant to the general manager was that the reason he got that job is because he had to be fired from being a wrestler. And then he wrestled on Collision against Jack Perry in the summer in just a throwaway match for the TNT title, and no one ever talks about it.
And it's like I can't give you the title because I'm no longer an EVP, but this man is, and it's a testament to how great and beloved Kenny Omega is that Omega can walk out and within seconds I've forgotten all the confusion I had about Daniel's role in the company in kayfabe.
I cried.
Oh, did you?
I genuinely did.
Oh.
Like I've missed Kenny so much, and just seeing him there and hearing that like crowd reaction from him coming out as well, I just couldn't help myself. And it was just, I'm so excited to see him back. Can't wait for his match with Gay. In in a few days' time.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that he's now back in AEW and I can see him doing wrestling. And he goes down, he hands over the Continental Championship to Kazuchika Okada, like his greatest all-time rival, and they shake hands, and there's a lovely bit of framing because as they're like sort of standing there next to each other, in the background is the poster for All In Texas, which is likely where you're going to do the 5th match.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Long way away though. That's 6 months away.
It is a long way, yeah.
What does Omega do in the meantime? What does Okada do in the meantime?
Well, I think it all depends on what comes out of because you got the Wrestle Dynasty and things like that. So I guess like, is he going to stay and do some more stuff in New Japan? Is he going to come back and do some like a mini feud in AEW?
He needs to like AEW need him back.
I think that they do because I think this company has really missed Kenny's presence.
And if they've signed off on him for the first 3 months of the next year to go and work a program in New Japan, that is corporate mismanagement.
Perhaps. Yeah, I would actually agree.
They really need him back. He is a huge player. He's really the heart of AEW now that Cody's left in terms of the OG boys. We need Kenny back.
Kenny being back has made me want to have the Young Bucks back as well.
Yeah.
And him to be involved with some stuff with Hangman Page. Like, I know you got to a point where you were kind of done with the Elite drama.
Oh, it's been long enough, though.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah,
for me, I'm actually quite in the mood now for some Elite drama. Like, I really am, like, quite chomping at the bit to see some Kenny and Hangman, some Kenny and the Bucks. Because I also think that can breathe a little bit of life into this Death Riders story, which is kind of really needed right now. So yeah, I'm over the moon with Kenny's return. I do have, I mean, we'll certainly see with the Gabe Kidd match, I guess. I mean, I've got my worries though, because you're teasing Okada Omega 5, right? The 5th match, a sequel to arguably the greatest professional wrestling match of all time in their 4th outing. But that was, 7 years ago. These odds are very different from where they were 7 years ago. That is such a big, lofty thing to try and accomplish again. I worry that the idea of it is almost too grand to actually live up to the expectations.
If anyone can, though, it's those two. They did it 3 times after their first match.
Yeah.
And mostly better. I'm genuinely afraid of dying before June. Now that this has been teased, I've got a long running joke with Ketan and Dan that he once got really drunk, maybe a few other things, and he got very scared that he would pass away before. I can't even remember what movie it was. Maybe it was Infinity War,
Endgame or something.
Yeah, or Civil War or something like that. It was like, I just need to watch that. I don't want to die before that. I'm like, dude, you got a kid. There are more important things. But now I know how he feels because there's this and there's Superman in June.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't. I've just got to get it through these. Just got to get through these 6 months. I'm fine. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm healthy. But I've just got to get through these 6 months to watch them both.
Have you seen the creator of Guy is really upset with of how he looks in the movie?
Oh, huh.
He said it makes him look really silly.
Yeah, well, things don't always translate from comic book to real life,
Yeah.
but in this one, it absolutely does.
I'm just going to end this other poll, the toilet paper one, first before I put up the poll to let us know what you thought of the show, because we've already talked about the main event.
Yes.
So do you want to give some overall thoughts on the show?
I thought it was a really good show. For me, it's still too long, but when I watched the pre-show as well, like, it's still 4 and a bit hours. I thought there were too many singles matches. I got a bit of fatigue in there, but I thought the C2 stuff was just excellent. I thought Monet and Statlander was incredible, and I really enjoyed Takeshita Hobbs. But yeah, did all of them need to be on pay-per-view? I think Takeshita Hobbs could have been a TV main event, and I would have definitely put the 4-way second to last and closed with the C2 final and the Kenny Omega return.
That's really my only note I've got on the show, is that I would have switched those matches around. But I thought this was a awesome pay-per-view. A great way to round out what has been a really great year of pro wrestling, but in both AEW and WWE. Like a really good way to round off 2024. Awesome wrestling up and down the card. There's a few things here, like I don't think the MJF Cole stuff works. I could have done without the Tijuana street fight. I'd have actually much rather something bigger for Mariah May to do. But when the show hit, it really landed everything. And I thought it was superb. And was the toilet paper spot funny? Thumbs up 64%.
Hey.
So we're not hugely in the minority there, but over half, over half of our audience thought it was a funny spot.
I mean, I chuckled. I just also got a bit of a, I do this to Swerve. This happened earlier this year when he became I love AEW babyface.
Yeah. Right. I'm just going to put up the poll now for people's thoughts.
Well, I'll go through the remaining Omega chats. Last call for those. WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out every single one. Over $5. Shellhard says, "Hi guys, I think this was AEW's worst pay-per-view of the year. Wow. But Will had 2 flipping brilliant matches, as Will versus Okada was AEW's 3rd best match of the year. Hobbs versus Takeshita and Monet versus Statlander was fantastic. Also, can't wait for Kenny Okada. 5 are all in." It's an odd follow-up to saying it's the worst pay-per-view of the year, but then
said, but it was the worst pay-per-view of the year, but over half of the matches were fantastic, and some of them were match of the year contenders.
Yeah. And you're really excited for Kenny Okada. But hey, maybe that's just a way to say you've loved all of AEW.
How good the quality has been. I will say, I've been asking for one of these professional wrestling companies to do 7 or 8 match cards. And they did it here. And I'm begging for them to do it more of this in the new year.
Tenruza. Howdy, Tenruza.
I think I believe Sat and I read this one out on the last AEW Dynamite show. Only because this is talking about, are you excited for the Hammerstein shows? And are you excited for the Ring of Honor Final Battle show?
I'll read it out anyway because it's Tenruza. Were you guys pumped for the Hammerstein shows? It was so much fun. I can't wait for Billy to win and Athena to come up to AEW. Cardona winning? Yes, that's definitely before last weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of Athena coming up to AEW...
It's just
crazy.
Yeah, also not happening because she retained her title. I really, really thought this was the year. And then when they did the angle of they're sticking together, I was like, oh, so we're going to wait till Final Battle next year to do this one, are we? EJO.
G'day, W. I am beaming with pride for my hometown boy, Carl Fletcher. I reckon he was booked pretty perfectly in the C2, and forgive my bias, but despite the winner, I think he had the most best matches of anyone in the entire tournament. Love your work, WrestleTalk. Jam that jam.
That's what I mean, man. Like, it was just... I thought that this tournament did amazing work for Carl. Also, I believe he had the most points out of anyone in the tournament. So, like, he was booked so strongly in that show, in the tournament.
It's like when a Rumble contestant doesn't win, but oh man, they got the Iron Man, or they got the most eliminations. Mike says, Okada running all the ropes just to slap Ricochet on the back of the head is the spot of the year. 20 stars, no notes. You know what? No notes has become a little bit pure cinema for me.
No way, is it really? I like it 10 out of 10 no notes.
Yeah.
For me. I use that fairly recently did describe The Bends by Radiohead. I think it's one of the few 10 out of 10 No Notes albums.
Misha Sumra, hello Misha, says, what a very uneven show. Opening hot with Ospreay Fletcher, and then the momentum keeps going until it stops dead with MJF Cole and doesn't pick up until Mercedes. There was only one match between those, wasn't there?
And the match that there's talking about there is the Hobbs Takeshita match, which I thought was really great.
Yeah. Peaks with Ospreay, Okada, and Kenny's return, and Craters with the main event. I think it's a very even show, but the main event should have been one match. They should have switched. And Misha continues, afternoon all, C2 unquestionably delivered. Ospreay equals God spray. Congrats to Ollie. Our new champion! My only regret is that there won't be a Royal Rumble live show for him to lose it to Tempest at. Here's at 2025 being a banner year for all of us.
Yeah, stupid Netflix. Yeah, they did not decide to think of what to do about doing broadcast licenses for their live sports.
Well, we'll most likely watch it here, won't we?
Yeah, we are planning on doing live reactions for the Royal Rumble. It's just that we'll be in studio. We cannot do the parties anymore, even though we'd kind of been shut down with them previously anyway, by certain people.
Trips rang us directly.
Certain companies prevented us from doing the live watch parties for those certain companies. But it's, with Netflix, they don't do licenses for pubs to stream. So
for now, I'm a big believer that they will issue a corporate
I think they'll
license.
have to. But did you think they're going to start doing more live sports?
Campus Scott says, did anyone notice the Cody dig in the Monet Statlander match? Stat hit Monet with the same pile driver Owens had Cody stretching out with, only for Monet to kick out and continue.
I think that's it's a Space Jam levels of reaching.
It was a package pile driver, and it was just like a near fall thing. I don't think it was a shot, but it did make me think, why do that with piled? That's a bit I didn't like about the match. They also hit like the sit down tombstone on the apron as like the near fall spot.
That's the 9 count spot. But it's the same. They did the power bomb on the apron once upon a time in NXT. Wrote Sami Zayn off. Now it is just it's back to being a spot in a match. It is. I think you are. It is a hell of a reach there to say that it is a dig at Cody and Kevin. It is a wrestling move.
And finally, Tenruza sees us out, lads. Merry Christmas for last week and Happy New Year coming up. Meeting you this year was a real pleasure, and I hope to catch up sometime in 25. Real class act for both of you and everyone there. Love to you and yours. My round next. And get over here. Jam that jam. Oh, thank you so much, Tenruza. It was so nice meeting you as well.
Yeah. Really,
I always think of you when I have a Guinness now. When I can bloody get it. With the shortages round here.
I know. It's been it's not been a good Christmas for Guinness. Well, actually, maybe it's been a great year for Guinness, but it also means that people haven't been able to get all the Guinness they want.
There was a ration.
It was
on Guinness. What for every Guinness you had to have a lager afterwards.
Really?
Yeah.
Some people say that's actually down to the splitting the G trend.
Well, yeah, I think it is.
Yeah,
that's what's made it popular with Gen Z.
With sheep. Just going to end this poll and see
I was doing
what
it
we've
before
got.
it was cool. And I'm really good at it.
Thumbs up, 68%, 24% thumbs in the middle.
Yeah, okay,
yeah. I would say that is on the lower end than I was expecting.
I think it ended weak and had the MJF Cole match in the middle. But I wouldn't want people to get too hung up on those because the C2, fantastic, and so was Statlander. Monet. Well, I'll be back tomorrow with the news. We'll have a big prediction show on New Year's Eve, and then we're doing nothing for New Year's Day because there's no money in New Year's Day. January 1st has just zero advertising revenue on YouTube, and also we'll be hungover. Like he is right now. But we'll be back reviewing AEW Dynamite, Luke and I, on Thursday on the WrestleTalk podcast channel. So make sure to go and subscribe over there because it's going to be a big show. Dynamite's on Max for the first time.
And also, if you are looking for, if you're sitting there like, I could really stand to hear Luke and Ollie review an old wrestling pay-per-view for nearly 4 hours, well, you're in luck, because we reviewed TNA Genesis 2006, which is the first Samoa Joe Kurt Angle match. It was released on Patreon earlier this year. It is now available on the WrestleTalk channel, so if you click into the channel, you can go and find it. It's about a 4-hour review of us going through that show match by match, and having a lovely fun time with it, mostly talking about the Voodoo Kin Mafia, as well as Joe and Angle. So yeah, go and check that out over there.
But for now, I am your reigning Jam That Champion. Jam That Jam.
And I'm going to go and jam that jam!